NASA space shuttles are being moved to locations around the country for a next generation of explorers to view and to gain inspiration from and to learn about the history of the shuttles. Discovery is at the Udvar Hazy Center, part of the Smithsonian's National Air and Space Museum. It's the annex at Dulles Airport in Washington, D.C. Enterprise was the prototype space shuttle. It performed the approach and landing tests in 1977 that were a precursor to the orbital flights and really established the fact that the shuttle could land as a glider. And this particular aircraft that you're looking at right now, NASA 905, was the Shuttle Carrier Aircraft that carried Enterprise on those approach and landing tests way back in 1977 and will be performing the final ferry flight of the Space Shuttle program. Endeavour, of course, will be going to the California Science Center in Los Angeles. And Space Shuttle Atlantis will stay here in Florida. On November 2nd, it will roll from Kennedy Space Center to the nearby Kennedy Space Center Visitor Complex. In Los Angeles, after it arrives on September 20th, the Shuttle Carrier Aircraft will be placed on a location on the apron where at this very moment a team of NASA and its contractors is erecting a series of cranes and wind restraints to manually offload the shuttle from the top of the Shuttle Carrier Aircraft in an operation that has been performed only twice in recent history and only once in past history, and that was at Dulles and at John F. Kennedy Airport in New York City to offload shuttles Discovery and Enterprise. So the team is in California right now at Los Angeles International Airport building up this elaborate system of cranes and wind restraints that performs the same function as the mate-demate device that you looked at a few moments ago. It's a very slow process and a very careful process to safely remove the shuttle from the top of the Shuttle Carrier Aircraft. And once that operation is complete, the two aircraft will go their separate ways. This Shuttle Carrier Aircraft, NASA 905, will go back to Dryden Flight Research Center. Endeavour will be brought and transported, towed basically through the city streets of Inglewood and Los Angeles, California on a 12-mile trek from LAX Airport to the California Science Center on October 12th and 13th. There also will be a large ceremony and a ribbon-cutting ceremony on October 30th at the California Science Center to open up the Samuel Ocean Space Shuttle Endeavour Display Pavilion. That will permanently open Endeavour to the public. The flight crew aboard the Shuttle Carrier Aircraft is making final preparations to disembark. Their work is pretty much done for the day. They will remain here at Kennedy Space Center and perform some work on the aircraft in preparation for the ferry flight, which again will begin on Monday, and for the mating operation that will begin about 6 a.m. on Friday. NASA 905 was one of two shuttle carrier aircrafts that NASA operated over the course of the 30-year Space Shuttle program. NASA 911 was retired recently, and it too is no longer needed for the Space Shuttle program. It is serving NASA's SOFIA program. Shuttle Carrier Aircraft's performed a number of ferry operations over the years when space shuttles were diverted to an alternate landing facility, or early on when the shuttles were landing intentionally at Edwards Air Force Base and then flown back to Kennedy Space Center to launch again. The Shuttle Carrier Aircraft, the modified 747, has 4 Pratt & Whitney gas turbine engines, each producing 50,000 pounds of thrust. With the space shuttle attached, the Shuttle Carrier Aircraft is typically cruising at an altitude of about 13,000 to 15,000 feet, much lower than a commercial jetliner. And when there is a shuttle attached, it typically can go about 1,000 miles before it needs to fill her up. The aircraft holds a little bit more than 47,000 gallons of jet fuel. The ferry flight is a meticulously planned operation that involves a team of NASA managers, Space Shuttle program transition and retirement personnel, weather officers, safety personnel to ensure that every leg of it is performed safely. There will be some reviews conducted over the next several days to review the weather and the progress of the mating operation before a go is given for the ferry flight on Monday morning. Again, that flight, if all goes well, is scheduled just after sunrise or at approximately 7:15 a.m. Monday, September 17th. In order to ensure that Endeavour arrives at Los Angeles International Airport on the prescribed day of September 20th, we'll begin the ferry flight on Monday, and then there will be a weather contingency day spent in Houston on Tuesday, September 18th. Again, the Shuttle Carrier Aircraft and Endeavour will take off from Kennedy, perform a flyover of the Space Coast area, head to the west and fly over areas in Mississippi and Louisiana before flying over areas of Houston and landing there at Ellington Field, where it will remain on the ground for the duration of the 17th and all day on the 18th, and then take off on the morning of the 19th westbound towards El Paso, Texas. It will take on fuel in El Paso and fly over White Sands Test Facility, and then head towards Edwards Air Force Base and the Dryden Flight Research Center. Throughout the ferry flight, NASA social media followers can follow hashtags #OV105 and #SpotTheShuttle. It will be quite exciting to see the amount of people posting pictures and sending pictures as the shuttle conducts its ferry flight across the United States from Florida to California. And the door is open, enabling the crew to complete its mission of the day. Again, they departed Edwards Air Force Base at 8:30 a.m. Pacific Time. Shuttle Carrier Aircraft Commander Jeff Moultrie, pilot Bill Rickey, and flight engineers Henry Taylor, Gary Ash, and Larry LaRose. Again, they'll be remaining here at Kennedy Space Center in the area for the next several days, taking care of their aircraft and preparing it for the ferry flight, while the workforce at Kennedy, which has been processing Space Shuttle Endeavour and preparing it for this, will perform the mate operation at the mate-demate device. And we see the flight crew coming out of NASA 905, out of the Shuttle Carrier Aircraft. Again, this is an experienced group of pilots that has flown with NASA for many, many years in many capacities, including training our astronauts. They fly a variety of aircraft, from the T-38 high-performance jets to the massive 747. Professional pilots, and this will be their last Space Shuttle program ferry flight. So with that, we'll wrap up coverage and remind you that at 6:45 a.m. on Monday, September 17th, NASA Television will begin coverage of Endeavour's departure, which is scheduled for sunrise, or right about 7:15 a.m. Eastern Time. And between now and then, the mating operation will take place at the mate-demate device. And if there are any changes to these plans, we will, of course, update the NASA web, so you can keep track of Endeavour ferry flight operations by going to www.nasa.gov/shuttle.